Hello, everyone. Welcome to Wingcat Sports, and it's our NFC North breakdown for the week of football that we had. As it goes on, the NFC North keeps on winning, except for the Bears. The Bears keep on sucking.
The Bears.
Luckily, right, two of them played each other, so not everybody won. But we'll start with the SAG game because we'll just go slowly to the better games of the day. Start out with the Bears. They're losing 38-13. They didn't even put up any points in the first half of the game. Not a good look for their interim head coach at all. Overall, Caleb Williams did not have the most fantastic day. 17 for 23 for 134 yards, 2 TDs. Really not fantastic, but not bad either. It's a good day.
Let's hire him and make him the full-time coach. Let's do it.
They ran for another 68 yards. Overall, looking at the stats, I see what the problem was. He got sacked 7 times.
Yeah, they've been saying that about the Bears for the last few years. It's like, you don't like Justin Fields, but you don't want to give him an offensive line.
Sacked 17 times for 50 yards worth of loss. That is a terrible, terrible thing. Yeah. You're not going to win a game getting sacked 7 times. Brock Purdy had an amazing day, 20 for 25, 325 yards, 2 TDs. They ran for another 131 yards in total. So there was no stopping the San Francisco team against Chicago. They're still 6-7. Chicago falls to 4-9 on the year. And it's hard to look at a potential win for them in the future. This was the only one I could see. The rest are going to kind of be up in the air for them.
Yeah. Well, it doesn't matter. It's their season's over with. They have to look to the future and who they're going to hire for their new coach.
They're looking at both Detroit coordinators.
And I certainly don't think Ben Johnson wants anything to do with the Chicago Bears. If he turned down the Carolina last year, he's going to turn down the Bears this year. Like I said, maybe Glenn would want to do that dumpster fire over there of an organization. But they need to change more than just the coach.
Yeah, we'll see what ends up happening fully in the offseason and where they end up going. Moving on to our next game of the week, the Vikings getting their victory over the Atlanta Falcons. Kirk Cousins couldn't get his revenge. 42-21, the final score. It was actually pretty close up to the third quarter, and then Atlanta just fell apart.
I watched that game, and they started out. I mean, the first drive, Atlanta looked great, and then after that, it was just a struggle the whole game. Kirk Cousins struggled. Just turnovers. That's what killed them. The score looked like a blowout, but Atlanta just gave it up. I mean, they were moving the ball.
Yeah.
And then they just had very costly turnovers that prevented them from, keeping up with Minnesota. Minnesota, I mean, it's like watching the old Raiders from the 70s with Darryl LaMonica. I mean, he were bombing the ball away. And they were just throwing the ball up. They weren't like nice passes. I mean, 2 of their touchdown passes were just basically, toss up in the air. There was no route to them. I mean, they just got lucky.
Yeah, so. I mean, Sam Darnold was 22 for 28, 347 yards with 5 TDs. If you played him in fantasy this week, you got a good week out of Sam Darnold. They also ran for another 115 yards. Aaron Jones led that rushing attack with 73. But overall, good day by Minnesota. They keep pace in the division, which is what they're trying to do. They are the top 3 in the NFC right now. And if they could just get ahead of the Lions, they have that chance still for that number 1 spot, because both Detroit and Minnesota are looking at the Eagles right now, wondering when their next loss might be.
It's going to be a tough road to the thing. And people want to just pencil us in like we got it, but that's not the case. These last 4 weeks are going to be really tough and tight, and it'll be a fun playoff. We're in the playoffs. The only thing that really scares me is playing Philly and Philly.
Really, are you going to be basically how you're looking at it? Are you going to be the 5th seed facing the NFC or NFC South or West team? Or are you going to have the first round bye?
Right. I mean, Minnesota's only game behind us. They have an easier schedule. And so it's not out of the realm of possibility at all that they could pass us by. And they've done it under the guys, like I said, with the Lions basically stealing all the spotlight, and they're just sneaking in underneath us. They're one game back of us.
One game back.
It's
I mean,
not.
Kirk Cousins overall. Also, Kirk Cousins didn't have a terrible day. He threw for 344 yards, 23 for 37. His only problem was his 2 interceptions. But Atlanta played well, like I said, up until fourth quarter. But I mean, yeah, Minnesota's playing really, really good still. We thought they might taper off. I mean, they've had close games. I don't think they can continue. They remind me of their team from a few years ago where they won all these one-score games and then they lost to the Giants in the playoffs
Right.
at home. So, yeah, I'm not going to put my money on the Vikings for that reason. They need to prove.
But it looks like, it'll be them, the Pack, us,
Washington.
maybe Washington. Who's winning the West?
It's just a jump. Tampa Bay just took control of the South from from Atlanta.
Did the Rams just
and
jump in
the
league?
Rams might have jumped. I am not 100% sure. Let's see. As of today, making this video, the Seahawks are still in first with an 8-5 record.
Oh, okay, yeah. So they're one game behind them at 7-6.
So yeah, it's either you're gonna go to if you're the 5th spot, you're gonna go play Tampa.
So Seattle and the Rams are battling it out for that division. Whoever wins,
And the NFC South, you got Tampa who's 7-6, Atlanta who's 6-7, and even New Orleans who is 5-8.
Right. I mean,
so I'm not going to say New Orleans is out of it, but they kind of are out of it. But it's only 2 games. It's only 2 games, so it's not like it's impossible for New Orleans to come back.
All the wild cards are going to come out of basically the our division. We'll have a couple teams, and maybe Washington will get in.
But moving on to one of the best games of the week, and it would happen to be on Thursday Night Football. Thursday Night Football this year has been a lot better than the years past. But Lions pulling out a last-second victory again against the Green Bay Packers, 34-31. Basically, whoever had the ball last. Some questionable calls to go for it by Dan Campbell a few times, but it ended up working out. No one's calling for his head right now, and we are now 12-1 and still first place.
Yep.
I mean, there's not much else to say.
We control our own destiny, but it's going to be a rough road. I mean, there's no doubt about it. Don't have an easy game the rest of the way.
Nope.
And I think we certainly can do it. I mean, but people need to realize we're 12-1. If we win only one more game, 13-4 is a phenomenal record.
It actually breaks the record for your team.
It does. It's a phenomenal.
Your team has only
record.
had 12 wins in
and
total.
I think we'll go. What? We got 4 games left. 2-2.
At least 2-2. At least 2-2. At least 2.
I just don't. I hope the fans don't get upset if we don't win the division. It's probably going to come down to that final game.
Yeah. I mean, what are you going to do? Division games are tough. But looking at it, Jared Goff, he had a good day, 32 for 41, 283 yards, 3 touchdowns to an interception compared to Jordan Love, who also did not have a terrible day. He was 12 for 20, 206 for 1 TD. Not as good as Goff. Not really that fantastic of a day. Just a good day. Packers ran for a total of 99 yards, while the Lions ran for 111. Even Jared Goff getting a few runs in there. It looked fairly even. The Lions are still a really good team, even with that third string defense.
Right.
The Packers fans don't want to admit it. Obviously, there's a lot of problems with Packers fans' calls on this game. They think Jared Goff was down at the end of the game, even though that's a college rule. There were some missed penalties. There's missed penalties on both sides. We already talked about this in our post-game video. Just deal with it. The Lions fans had to deal with it for years of bad calls against them. So if there's bad calls against you, just deal with it. Shut up. We've had it for so many years.
Right. I don't get that.
I don't feel bad for you at all. Shut up and deal with it. Move on to the next game like we've
Everybody gets bad calls. And you want to know what? Good. If
we're favored over the Packers, good.
If we're the Kansas City Chiefs of the NFC, great.
Deal with it.
We need it. We deserve it after 60 years of
bleh. But we'll look towards the future of all the games for the remaining schedules of every single team. Lions, difficult task this week. luckily, it's a long break for them for this game. The Bills are not going to be as happy, though, because they got a loss against the LA Rams. Great for my fantasy, though. Puka Nakua and Josh Allen did fantastic in fantasy this week. But looking ahead, Bills with the Lions. Lions are still 2-point favorites in this game. Have a 56% chance to win it. It's not going to be easy because they're going to be looking to keep pace in the AFC while we're looking to keep pace in the NFC to still have that number one spot. I think if you can beat the Bills, you guarantee yourself that number one spot and maybe even the division.
Yeah. Oh, for sure. For sure. I think Josh Allen is probably the most exciting player in the league. Certainly the biggest wild card out there. And I think they might be, if we are lucky enough to get through the playoffs and get to the Super Bowl, I think it's the Bills we're going to face.
That'd be my preferred Super Bowl would be Bills Lions.
Right.
After the Bills,
and somebody made a point out too that said if we could win a Super Bowl, we'll be the only team. Well, the Minnesota Vikings will be the only team in our division not to have won a Super Bowl.
I think the only team, well, not the only team in the NFC, but we're the last team in the NFC not to make a Super Bowl.
Really?
Yeah. Everyone else is in the AFC. So
I'm talking about win a Super Bowl.
But win a Super Bowl is different. Looking ahead past the Bills, though, we got the Bears in Chicago, 49ers on Monday Night Football in San Francisco, and then we come home to play the Vikings. Depending on how that could become a Sunday Night Football matchup, just because so far division hasn't been clinched, and that could decide the division. Though I think if you win the next three as the Lions, you clinch the division, because I think the head-to-head wouldn't matter at that point. Even if you lose to Minnesota, and I believe you will have a better division record than Minnesota at that point.
Right, I think so too, because we've already kind of beaten them. So I think every time, like I said, we start to worry about these Lions, they just seem to find a way.
Like I said, slowly you're going to get your defensive players back. I don't think you're getting any back this week, but I think the week of San Francisco is the week that you start to slowly get these guys back in your lineup. Moving on, though, because pre-game is for a different video for the Lions. We're going to go into the Packers. They're going to go play the Seahawks this week. Not going to be an easy matchup for the Packers. They're 9-4. Seahawks are 5-8. Green Bay is favored by 3. They are in Seattle on Sunday Night Football. Seattle's still fighting to keep that division lead. I don't know how confident I am in the Packers with this game. The Packers are a good team. I think they're slightly better than what their record shows, but Seahawks will still have some fight.
Yeah, they it should be a good game, and I think the Packers and the Vikings are basically, it looks like to me, I think they're going to win out.
The Packers did,
or not win out. I think they're going to be to the end, and the Vikings will also battle for that thing.
Well, the Packers, I think, could definitely go at least 2-2 the rest of the way. It could be 3-1. They're going to play the Seahawks, like I said, and then they're going to come home and play the Saints, which they should easily beat. Then they're going to go to Minnesota, which will be another tough game for them, and then they're going to go play the Bears.
The Bears. So they finish off easy.
They finish off against the Bears. That Vikings.
That's what I mean.
That Vikings game is not going to be easy, and that's also kind of where the Lions can win the division again. That will be the week to look at. If you win this week against the Bills, that week before the end of the year, if the Packers beat the Vikings, voila,
right,
you got it.
And we can rest people. I mean, we could do. That's what I think is the most important thing right now.
If you can push yourself to beat the Bills and you win your next 3, you can kind of relax that last game.
Get as healthy as you can for the playoffs. Once you're in, and like I said, outside of Philly, I'm not really worried about anybody.
And then looking at Minnesota, their next few games is a division game this week on Monday Night Football. Not the most fantastic game though. The Vikings will be playing the Bears.
The Bears
on Monday Night Football. Bears still struggling, 4-9. Like I said, they don't have the greatest remaining 4. Well, neither do the. I'm not gonna say the Vikings don't have the greatest remaining 4 games either. After the Bears, obviously they should take care of the Bears, no problem at home.
They should.
So that should give them up to 12-2. But after that, they go to Seattle. Again, fighting for that division, so that's not going to be an easy game for them. Then they're going to go play the Packers at home, and then they come play Detroit. So this is their final stretch of 4 games where it's not the easiest for them.
Right.
It is not going to be easy to make it out here with 4 to 3 wins. They might go 2-2 through this stretch, just like the Lions can go 2-2 through their stretch. It's not going to be the easiest thing going on here.
Well, I'm gonna, like I said, I hope that some other teams along the way, especially with Philadelphia's schedule, can help us out a little bit.
And we'll look at Philadelphia's schedule in here because it affects 2 of the teams anyways. But
they got a pretty tough schedule.
Looking at the Bears, everybody roughly has the same schedule except for the Lions. Division matchups galore, right? The Bears are playing the Vikings, and then they're going to play us next week in Chicago. Then they go play Seattle, and then they play Green Bay at the end of the year. So it's roughly all the same teams playing for the remaining few games, except for
49ers look pretty good against the Bears.
The Lions, but the 49, we'll see what ends up happening. The Bears, I'm not confident in you. I think you're going to lose out. But maybe you can get a win against one of the four because it's a division matchup. So anything can happen in a division matchup, but I'm not very confident. And one final thing to look at, just because why not? Because it does affect our teams. We'll go look at the Philadelphia Eagles schedule, barely beating the Panthers. They only lost off of a dropped catch, would have been a touchdown.
Right.
The Eagles just keep an eye on that first spot in the NFC. They're going to play the Steelers this week on Sunday.
That's a tough matchup.
Which might benefit
us.
Both Vikings and Lions for that number 1 spot. Then they're going to play the Commanders in Washington. Again, not easy for the Eagles.
No, this is going to be. I think the Eagles got probably one of the toughest schedules to go.
Well, no, they don't. After the next 2 games, they're going to go play the Cowboys.
No.
And then they're going to play the Giants.
Well, but you know what Dion said about the Cowboys and stuff like that. They're not done.
The Cowboys, I ain't worried about those last 2 games for the Eagles, but the next 2 will determine how easy it is this number 1 spot to clinch will be. But I mean, regardless, I'll root for the NFC North team. I'll root for the Vikings inside the division if we can't make it. Why not the Vikings? Because they haven't won. They've been through just as much pain. Not as bad, but just as much pain.
It'd be interesting about not blasphemy to say such a thing, but to get a Minnesota Buffalo matchup would be pretty interesting because you have 2 teams who've been there 4 times and never won. And
that's what some people want. They want a Minnesota Buffalo just because it's the 2 teams that can never win it. They always just lose.
Right.
That's why people want a Browns Lions, because it's 2 teams that can never make it, and they've always historically sucked.
Well,
it's the same thing, but we'll see what ends. I would just want if Minnesota made it. I'd be fine with it just because of Sam Darnold. Sam Darnold being thrown around the league, he would deserve it, honestly. But with all that being said, if you like what you see, like, comment, subscribe, share it around. Let me know what you think about everything going on in football here in the NFC. Until next time, see everybody soon.